Hey everyone, Moog has just released their 1.3 version firmware for the Moog Muse. Now this update offers new optimizations to the system overall in terms of latency. It also offers some improvements in the mod map behavior as well as velocity and the audio quality of the diffusion delay. And we're going to take a look at some of those as well as the update process. What you're going to need is a computer to actually use as a host for the Moog, and then also a USB cable. It's going to have to be a USB-A to USB-B. And you're going to use that cable and plug the square end into the USB port on the back of the Moog Muse, and the other end, of course, to your computer, the host. So next, let's download the firmware from the Moog Muse website. So from the Moog website page, if you're downloading today, you're going to see Moog Muse firmware 1.3. Of course, you can probably search the site for the latest firmware and simply click on download Moog Muse firmware, and it's going to download. Open up the download folder. In this folder, you're going to see Moog Muse firmware.bin, which is the actual firmware, and also a PDF that talks about the actual firmware and the improvements in the firmware. It's always important to read the release notes of any software or firmware whenever they're available, because this is going to be information from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So in regards to these improvements, this is what Moog has to say. There's significant system-wide optimizations to reduce latency. There's also in the diffusion delay audio fidelity improvement. That means no more crackles. For the mod map, it is when you use the both function for both the source and the control, and you're going to see the improvements in the latency. With the velocity, you're not going to get those zero velocity notes anymore. So I can understand how that can be a major improvement in the performance for the velocity. Also, you should know with this release, there are also some updates to the presets. There's some new presets available. Okay, so now onto the firmware update process. Next thing you want to do is make sure that your Moog Muse is turned off. Then you want to power up your Moog Muse, but first you want to press the select button now and then power on. This is going to put your Moog Muse into disk mode. This allows the computer to see the Moog Muse's internal storage, where you're going to swap out the firmware. Next, you're going to see the Moog Muse show up on your computer as a disk drive. Just open that up, and you'll see 3 folders in there. One is going to be named firmware, so you want to open that up. And in there, you're going to see the Moog Muse firmware.bin file that currently exists. This is your 1.2 firmware. Usually, I like to save old firmware or software just in case something happens to where I need to revert back. So I'm going to copy this to a safety folder. All right. And now next, we want to take our new firmware 1.3 and drag it to the Moog Muse disk, and it's going to ask if you want to replace. You say yes, replace. This replaces the 2 firmware, so you're going to have the 1.3 firmware on your Moog Muse storage instead of the 1.2. Once you've done that, you want to make sure that you eject the Moog Muse disk. This is very important. After you've ejected the disk, you'll notice on the Moog Muse screen that it now says disk mode session ended. This tells you that you have disconnected from the computer and it is now safe to restart your Moog Muse. So restart your Moog Muse. It's always good to wait a couple of seconds after you power down before you restart. Okay, the Moog Muse has been restarted. Let's check the firmware to make sure that it is taken. So we go into the menu and we see version firmware 1.30, panel version 3. So we know the firmware has been taken successfully and everything appears to be working. I hope this video was helpful for you in informing you. Please let me know in your comments if this firmware helped you out, if it has improved things for you. Also let me know in the comments what other types of videos you'd like to see me present on this channel. Also, if you appreciated this video in any type of way, please consider liking as well as subscribing to the channel, and let me know what types of videos you'd like to see more of on this channel. So As always, keep those 808s booming, and I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.